Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Heron, and welcome to the latest episode of the Heron Financial Podcast. Today is an extra special episode. We've got Dean from Wonder Films.
Hello.
Dean is a first-time buyer, and he's going to ask me some questions that hopefully I can answer. And hopefully you will find those answers useful as well on your own quest to buy your first home.
I'm going to kick things off, Matt, just because we are my first time buyer. I mean, me and you have been friends now for I've said 2 years now?
Too long.
Too long. Thanks, Matt. As always, thank you very much. He doesn't mean it.
No, not at all.
But yeah, we've been friends for quite a while. I have learned bits and bobs working with you along the mortgage world. However, as a first time buyer, what I'm finding difficult at the moment is navigating this world of buying a house for the first time because, oh my God, trying to buy a house at the minute is crazy. What advice can you give to me? Because what my main struggle is at the minute is trying to put an offer in and getting that offer accepted. What can I do more to potentially get that house?
Well, I think sometimes, and you won't want to hear this, sometimes it's right place, right time.
Yeah.
And we often find with clients who are in the same situation with you, and it's happening everywhere, is sometimes you just get lucky.
Yeah.
And you happen to get the phone call from the estate agent to say, look, this house has come back on the market that we think you might be interested in. Do you want to come and see it now? And the stars align. So sometimes you do need that little bit of luck. But I think really from the work that we do with agents and the work that we do with house builders and introducers, the key really is to be prepared.
Yeah.
So having a good awareness of things like your credit score, which we've covered in other episodes, but also just being aware of what can you borrow? What does it look like? Are the monthly payments going to be in line with what you expect? Knowing where your deposit's going to come from. And really just being ready for when that phone call does happen, because it will happen.
Yeah.
And that will allow you to get to the top of the list because there are lots of people out there who are interested, but there's a real big scale. You know, you could be slightly interested. You know, you're sitting there of an evening, maybe with a beer in hand, looking on Rightmove or one of the other portals to try and find houses. And you might want to move, you might not, all the way through to somebody like you who just really wants to make the move.
Yeah.
And I think when you really want to make the move, you need to do everything in your power that you can to get yourself in position to answer that call when it comes.
Yeah. For me as well, I think what I was going to ask you is as well, what I was very curious about is new builds. New builds for me. So a lot of houses I've bid on currently have been all council, stuff like that.
Yep.
So do you think me going for a new build be more, I'll get more on the ladder then, but it's better to get on the ladder than actually trying to buy someone from a chain?
Well, I think with new build, you would probably have more options.
Yeah.
It's a really busy environment now in terms of house building. So look, we've still got an issue in this country with builders, and we are still massively undersupplied.
Yeah.
But one thing that you can find with a new build versus some of the other stuff that you've looked at is you can potentially access some schemes. So the Help to Buy scheme is one that lots of people have heard of. Shared ownership is another one. But there are lots of other schemes now starting to come down the track. Some of which would only potentially work on a new build. So I think one of the benefits of looking at new build is you've potentially got a little bit more choice. Mm-hmm. If you're buying on a bigger development, they've probably got more than one house like the one that you want.
Yeah.
And you've also got potentially access to those schemes as well.
Yeah, I think going back to an episode you covered recently that I did listen to, and it did actually help us quite a lot about the new builds, is the energy saving part. And again, for me, looking for a new house, that is a big worry for me, especially where the world has gone a bit. So I think what you've said there is it does give some clarity in what I need to do. Big
time. And I think that that's on everyone's agenda now. We're having lots of conversations with clients around energy efficiency.
Yeah.
And whilst it's been a requirement for a few years now to publish that information and to make people aware how energy efficient is this home, I think now it's actually becoming part of the decision.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be alone in that. And we're talking to lots and lots of clients. And that is another reason why people are starting to head in that direction of buying a new home, because generally it's got double glazing at the least. It's very well insulated. You might have something like a ground source heat pump or a more efficient way of heating the home than traditional sort of gas. So you're not alone in looking down that path, and I think it's definitely worth continuing to look down that path.
Yeah, I think what's put the brakes on me for new builds, only concern I have, and I think this could be cleared up in this conversation really, is if I was going to sell on that house in later life, could it be negative equity, or does it depend on my situation?
Look, it's not a secret. I think that it's probably more of a concern in that new build arena, and part of the reason is because prices have gone crazy.
Yeah,
we've had a period of time where prices have gone up and up and up. And like all economic cycles and like all cycles in the housing market, there has to come a point when that stops. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a disaster when it stops, but it could mean that you end up in a situation where the property is not increasing in value as much. I do also think there's a little bit of a sort of false narrative around that, where people do overly worry about prices falling. The other thing to think about whenever you look at the concept of a price reduction or your house not being worth what you paid for it is really the value of your property is only relevant at the point that you come to sell, or remortgage potentially. And actually, if you're buying now, how long are you gonna live there for?
Well, let's be honest. It depends on the situation. I mean, we are going to try and have a family, but buying this house though is having that in mind.
Fine. So you're buying a house now. You want to have a family. You're going to be there for what? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So I think if you take a step back now and look at prices 4 or 5 years ago, so we go back from today.
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pushed to find somewhere where you'd fallen into that negative equity position.
Yeah.
It's not something that should be dismissed easily because it can happen. But I think if you're going to be in the home for a longish period, 4, 5, 6 years, it's unlikely. You know, it could happen, but it's very unlikely.
That's good. I mean, that's literally the only concern I had because of, like I say, you hear all these rumours and horror stories about people when they leave. But again, this is all hearsay. We don't know the full situation. We don't know the full arc, what they've had. So yeah. It can concern you.
Has that solved it?
Yeah, it has actually. To be honest, it has put my mind at ease. I think I've listened to the previous episode and then coming on this episode, I think it has put my mind at ease about new builds. Good. It has opened my mind a bit more about them, if I'm completely honest. Good. I think as well, for me as well, I feel like as well, in this housing market currently, people who have like ex-council houses or any houses in general, feel like they can just like, it's like a bidding war. It is a crazy bidding war. Yeah. Like for example, we put a bid in, I would say quite over asking.
Right.
And we still got a bit. I think, how has this happened? What is someone offering? Now I was going to ask you, is a situation where the seller's looking at us thinking, well, your first time buy is that a risk over someone else?
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah. So an experienced agent, if you're talking about a resale property here rather than new build, an experienced agent they have that knowledge to know it's not always the highest bid. Yeah. That you should be putting forward to the vendor, because remember, when an estate agent is selling a property for somebody, they're acting on behalf of the seller. So you as a buyer, they're not, I was going to say they don't care about you. That's not true, but they're less concerned about you than they are about their seller. So it's if they're going to do their job correctly, then they need to look at your circumstance as well as the amount that you're going to offer. Yeah. It's all well and good you put in the highest bid, but if you can't get a mortgage, or your deposit's not going to be available for 6 months because it's locked into a savings scheme, or you're being gifted by parents and it's not available, then are you the best potential buyer for that seller? So of course the amount that you pay matters, but it's not the be all and end all. And that's why, coming back to my answer to your earlier question, you do need to get yourself in a really good position, whether it be on the mortgage, the deposit, your income, your credit score. You have to know where all of that stuff sits. Yeah. In order to then communicate that to the agent. And that's I guess the final point on this is, tell the agent about it. Like, it's all well and good you getting yourself ready. If you don't tell them, how do they know? Yeah, they don't know whether you're in a good position or not. They can assume. So it's a really weird thing, but you're almost trying to sell yourself. Yeah. So you're going in there and you're saying to them, look, here's my situation. I've got my deposit. I've got my solicitor. I've got my mortgage. I'm ready to go. This is the amount that I want to offer. Now, if I'm an estate agent and I'm receiving that offer, I'm thinking, bloody hell, Dean is on the ball. Yeah. And that's what you got to try and do. Well, see, I didn't know. Actually, I just thought it was as simple as having a mortgage in principle and then putting off. I didn't realise you have to have all these factors in place to then go, right here, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Yeah. So I didn't know that. So again, thank you very much for that advice, because maybe I might get a house now. Yeah, it's all free, Dean, don't worry. It's all free, it's all there. You'll charge us later, though. We'll work that out. But yeah, just a final point I want to make before we leave it here. I think for me, as a first-time buyer, what I've looked at as well, I was wondering if this is the case. Is you also, going back to your previous point, you also have to sell yourself to the seller as well? Because I feel like, am I being too pushy by saying, if we put an offer deal, we'll accept it? Is that too pushy? Can that scare people off sometimes? It can, and I think you've got to judge it. I mean, look, I'll give you a sort of personal story. I've bought a flat before because I put a letter through somebody's door. Right. So that might be a little bit old-fashioned in this day and age, and that, you're going back a few years now, but it does make a difference. And I think there are some sellers out there who are all about the money. Yeah. And actually they couldn't give a hoot about you. Yeah. But there are others out there that like the story. So, you mentioned you and your other half potentially starting a family. There are people who've maybe lived in a house for many years and they've got an attachment. That home holds memories for them. Yeah. And so if you're going to go in there and potentially go on that journey that they went on, then that's worth telling them about. Yeah. So I think telling them your story will help. I think that the time demand aspect, this offer's only valid for 3 seconds, otherwise, your house is going to blow up. That doesn't necessarily always work. And I think that people feel rushed. Yeah. I think actually you're better off trying to engage with them. Yeah. Be their mate. Yeah. And try and get a bit more friendly rather than trying to say, if you don't accept this now, we're off.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's been the approach in the past. And I think that's why I was wanting to bring up folks. I think, has that worked? Is that the reason why I'm losing these offers for? But yeah. Again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I think I'm pretty much ready to go. I think what I will be doing now is send you houses and saying, can I get these houses now?
Yeah, now you need to speak to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yes, I think I need your help.
Not me. Okay. Well, look, I think I've really enjoyed that, and if you've got information from that you found really useful, then we've hopefully helped some other people watching as well.
Well, I think we'll have. I think anyone, I know a lot of people who are in my situation right now struggling and wondering why this isn't happening for. So I think if they listen to this episode, they're going to get that journey and get that process better.
I hope so.
I hope so as well.
Well, Dean, look, really appreciate you joining me today.
No problem at all. Anytime.
Thanks for being a guinea pig. Thanks for telling us about your horror stories of offering on houses.
It's all right.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, many other places too. We really, really like your feedback and your comments, so please keep them coming. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.